So we're grateful to have John Tippetts with us today. I'm going to let Deanne introduce him. Let's welcome him here with us today.
Aloha, aloha everyone. I'm excited to introduce my husband. John's always been an entrepreneur ever since the day I met him, which was about 35 years ago. We were attending BYU Provo and we met on a blind date. 2.5 months later we were engaged, 2.5 months later we were married, and after that he has just, at the time we got married, he had our first house halfway built, and for the first couple years after we were married, I'd find things that I wanted him to change about the house, so he'd just draw a new set of plans and build me a new house, and we'd move into that one, and then I'd make some more changes and he'd draw a new set, and so that was pretty fun. John decided when we were about to have our third child, he decided that he wanted to become a chiropractor. So he went back to school and got his degree and opened a chiropractic office. After that, he decided he wanted to start a seminar business. So he opened that up and taught chiropractors relicensing seminars throughout the United States and Hawaii for about 8 or 10 years, along with his chiropractic office. And then in 2006, he was looking for a new adventure, and so he decided to buy some real estate. He bought a 45-acre piece of property and subdivided it into 312 home site subdivision. So I want to introduce my husband, John. It's exciting for me because I'm a full-time student here, and because of his newest venture in internet marketing, he's able to work wherever I wanted to live. So here we are, and here's my husband, John.
Thank you very much. I thought she was going to say, and he's so handsome, or he smells good, or something like that. But my young entrepreneurial friends, aloha. I'm very happy to be here with you today. I love being on the campus of Brigham Young University here in Hawaii. I love the warm spirit of aloha with which I'm met whenever I come here. I've learned a great deal about this spirit of aloha that I think is worth reciting back to you, what I've learned, what you have taught me. The word aloha means hello, but it's not just hello, it's a warm greeting. It's a very friendly and happy and warm greeting. It also means goodbye, but it's not just goodbye, it's a very fond farewell. Additionally, the word aloha means I love you. And so here on the campus of BYU, when they talk about serving with the spirit of aloha, they talk about serving with love. And this is a very interesting concept to me. In fact, one of the things, I'm not going to have you write down a whole lot of stuff as I'm talking, but one of the things that I would like you to write down is harness the power of emotions. Harness the power of emotions. It's a very important concept. As I've thought about this concept of serving with aloha, I'm reminded that the Savior in Matthew said, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And I've often, for my burden is easy and my yoke is light, he says. And I've often wondered how the man who carried the weight of the world could say, my burden is easy and my yoke is light. And it wasn't until I came here and learned about serving with the spirit of love, the spirit of aloha, that I realized his burden was easy because he served with love. Jesus served with aloha. And as you harness the power of this emotion, it will take the burdens of your work out of your work. If you love the people you serve, if you love the people you work with. Two real basic concepts. The people you work with, love them. In fact, Jesus taught his apostles in the upper room just before his crucifixion. He said, love one another as I have loved you. By this shall men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one for another. And so he taught that corporate culture right at the very foundation of the church, was to love the people you work with. It's a very important concept. Love the people you work with. That makes work fun, makes it happy. Okay, I've decided, as I've thought about the 35 years of entrepreneurial experience that I have, I wondered how I might, what I might say that would benefit you the most. And so after thinking about the various kinds of businesses, what I've decided to do is talk about our latest adventure, which is information marketing, or in fact, internet marketing. And I wanted to tell you about this one because it's a startup business, and it most comes closest to the kind of thing that I suspect that you'll be getting into. In fact, almost no matter what you get into, you're going to be using the internet to help market what you do. And so I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about different ways that you can approach marketing on the internet. This first way, I'm using my own web page as an example here. It's entitled becomearealestatedeveloper.com. That's the name of the business. You're welcome to go to it and watch it. You're welcome to sign up on the sign up for the free information that I send out, and you will probably it'll probably be instructive to you, regardless of whether you're interested in real estate development or not. What'll happen is you'll see the automated system that we use and how we market the internet, or use the internet to market the business. So basically what happens is when you type in becomearealestatedeveloper.com, you will come to, it didn't switch, oh, there it did. There it did, okay. You'll come to this page. This is called a landing page, for those of you that aren't familiar with it. And again, I'm showing you this because you may end up marketing the internet. No, I said it wrong. You will definitely end up marketing on the internet. This is one of the ways that you may choose to do it. This is called an information website. In this website, people will, for various reasons, they will be driven to this website. So once they get there, the little guy in the corner up there, that's me. When you click on it, I come on and start speaking to you, and I introduce myself and basically tell you why you might want to listen to me. And basically I say I'm a real estate developer and I'll help you learn how to develop real estate. And then I offer to give them 2 free gifts. And the free gifts are an audio download and a special report, an information report. So they're automatically generated. You can get on the internet at 2 o'clock in the morning in Fiji and type in Become a Real Estate Developer, and I will automatically send that to you while I'm sleeping. And that's one of the things that I love about using the internet. I may be more in love with it than some of you are, because I started in business prior to the internet. They didn't have the internet back in the day. They didn't have cell phones, fax machines, pagers, which you probably haven't even seen because they were obsolete before you really became aware of them. Even answering machines. When we advertised back in the day, we put a yellow page ad in the paper, which we paid enough for to buy a new car about every year or 2. That was the cost of putting up a yellow page ad. It wasn't as effective as your basic internet presence, which you can maintain almost for free. And so this really gives you a great advantage. And it's important to point out that some of your older competitors probably do not have an internet presence. And so this is an opportunity where you can have a competitive edge just by developing a solid internet presence. Okay, so again, in information marketing, they'll come to this page. After they've signed up, they start getting an automatic email every few days or every week or so. And after a period of time, I've sent them enough information that they become interested, and browsing may turn to buying. At that point, they'll be sent to a sales page. Now, the sales page, in my case, is 13 pages long, and it's filled with reasons why they should buy, and it's filled with testimonials of people who have benefited from the information. And then at the end of the 13 pages, they'll see a page like this, which shows the product that we offer. And in this product, I teach people how to safely buy real estate, how to understand the real estate purchase agreement, how to understand the construction contract agreement, how to do a market analysis, and so forth. We just go through all of this stuff there. Now, some of you will have information that you'll want to market in this fashion. A lot of people are doing it. It's called information marketing. There's a third way, or there's a second way to market the internet, and that would be with a brochure page. This is an example of this is an example of a catalog page. So the second way is catalog page. Okay, the first one was information, second one is catalog. This is Zappos.com. How many of you have heard of Zappos by a raise of hands? Okay, look around the room. There are a dozen or so people in here who are familiar with Zappos. Tony Shih, the developer of Zappos, decided that he had started a business. In fact, let me move on here. This is Tony Shih here with the handsome guy with the beard there. That's me. Tony's a young guy. I wanted to show you that picture because I wanted to show you how young he is. At this point, this was taken probably a year or two ago, something like that. Is it correct? At any rate, at that point, Tony had just sold his business, Zappos, to Amazon for, I believe it was 1.2 billion with a B. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out to you is because internet marketing has a low capital investment to get into. You don't have money to get into it. And then the ceiling is very high. For your potential profit ceiling is very high. So that's one of the reasons that I've chosen to move into this direction in business. When I was a chiropractor, there's a huge capital investment. You've got not only the years and the student loans involved in getting your education, but then after that you set up a practice. You rent an office, you buy equipment, and you've got a big overhead that you've got to maintain. And you've got a fairly low ceiling on how much potential profit you can make. You're limited to how many times you can do that per day as a doctor of chiropractic. Okay, and whether you're a dentist or a lawyer or whatever kind of professional you are, you're limited to how much service you can give. That's not so on a catalog site. And so that's one of the benefits. Okay, and one of the things that Tony told me is he said that his first business he started when he was in college. He said it was an internet business, but he says they had a lot of fun with it in the beginning. He said they'd go to school, they'd do their work, they'd do their homework, and then they would get together at his house. He would order in pizzas, and they'd all sit around and work, and they were playing and joking and goofing off. And he says, and that worked really great right up until the time that they started making money. And he said when they started making money, then there began to grow some animosity in the business over who's doing the most work and who deserves the biggest piece of the pie and that sort of thing. And he said it wasn't long until he absolutely hated going to work, and he hated the people that he worked with. It was a miserable experience for him. So he sold the business and then started Zappos, and that was about 10 or 12 years ago when he started it. And he decided two things. He said, number one, I decided that most people don't trust internet marketing. And he said, and so I'm going to put trust into it. He says, customer service will be number one with me. And he says, I will under-promise and over-deliver on every case. And so he went to work on building that trust with his clients. And he says that it worked so well that he has some women in particular who have bought $70,000 a year worth of shoes to put in their closet. I'm not talking about commercial investors here, just people that really like his service. The point is, by building a very happy customer service program, he has built the trust into his business, and that's why he was able to sell it for $1.2 billion. The other thing that he did that he said was the result of his experience, he said, I wanted to love the people I work with. He said, I didn't want to hate going to work. And he said, and so I worked really hard on corporate culture. He said, we've designed a program, a training program, where everybody that comes to work for the company, whether they're a CFO or whether they're just packaging orders and fulfilling them, he says everybody goes through an identical training program. It lasts 2 weeks. And he says at the end of the 2-week training program, he says he offers to pay them $1,100 to quit their job. And anybody who decides to take him up on it, he figures he doesn't want working for him. If they're not interested enough to keep $1,100 invested in their job, he doesn't want to have them. It's a one-time offer. He doesn't give that to them as separation pay. That's a will you quit today pay. and if they like their job enough to work with him. He says he's thinking about raising the number because he's still got a few bad apples that he'd like to get rid of. And so that's one of the ways that he controls his corporate culture. In the end of any business that you establish, you want it to be a fun place to go to work. You want to be happy. You want to enjoy life. I mean, that's really what your goal is of going to work. It's not about money so much as it is just about your work providing you joy and happiness. You're hoping that you'll make a lot of money so that outside of work you can go buy joy and happiness. But he said, look, if joy and happiness is what you're after, let's make joy and happiness part of our workday. Let's love the people we work with. Okay, so that's the second type of marketing that you can do on the internet is a catalog page. The next thing that you can do, example number 3, is a brochure page. This is a typical brochure page. This is Ed Rush. He's a friend of mine. He offers his service on this page. He offers his service as a public speaker. Now, Ed lives in San Diego, and he bills himself as San Diego's keynote speaker. And that way, if a corporation's coming into town, they don't have to pay somebody to come to San Diego and speak to them. He charges $7,500 for a 1-hour presentation. So you can see that it's a pretty neat little side business, and that's all it is for him, is a little side business. His main business is something else. But just as a side business, he picks up these jobs for $7,500, then he sells product at the back table as people are leaving. And so on average, he'll pick up $10,000 or $12,000 each time he gives a speech. And he may do a dozen in a year. Not a real big business for him, but he's making 6 figures in a side business. And he's using the internet to market it. Makes a pretty sweet little business. Again, the capital investment here is very small. You may be thinking, well, gee, I've given some talks in Sunday school and in sacrament meeting, and I wouldn't mind setting up a little business. There is absolutely no reason why you can't do that. Okay? Okay. Now that I've told you about internet marketing and its advantages, I'd like to talk to you a little more about the principles behind success and kind of move away from a specific business and talk more about success principles. I heard a poem several years ago that struck me so hard I committed it to memory because there are some very important lessons in it. The poem goes like this. It has 3 important lessons. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening when I counted my scanty store, for life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask, but once you've set the wages, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. That's the way it is in life. Now, you may be asking yourself, how do I set my own wage? I can do that. You don't do it by wishing. You do it by deciding who you want to be. And then once you've decided the kind of person you want to be, then your wage will be attracted to you. Okay? If you've decided I want to be a nobody, that's the wage you're going to get. If you've decided I'm going to be a person of character, I'm going to serve those around me, your wage will be attracted to you. Okay? That's how you set your own wage. Another way that you set your own wage is using these 2 factors. They are hope and will. I looked up the word wish in the dictionary, and I learned that a wish is defined as a desire. And then I looked up the word hope, and the dictionary says that hope is a desire accompanied by the expectation of fulfillment. And it's in the expectation of fulfillment that hope has its power over wishing. It's in the expectation of fulfillment. So in this picture here, the little guy, can you all make that out from in the back? The little guy in this picture has to hope. He has to believe that he can beat the big guy. he has to have a plan. He has to know how he's going to do it. And he has to harness the emotions involved in this event. And if you look at the picture closely, look at the expression of the faces of the people in the audience there. Every one of those people is enthralled with what's going on here. And they all are hoping for him. They're all praying for him. They're all praying for that little guy. He has harnessed their emotions. He's harnessed his own emotions. And then he may say to himself, as part of his plan, he may say, okay, I'm going to harness the big guy's emotions too. I'm going to get him irritated. I'm going to get him mad. And when he charges at me, he'll come running. I'll jump over to the side. I'll kick him squarely in the back of the popliteal fossa, and the big guy's going down. The popliteal fossa is right there. When he goes down, I'm going to jam his head into the mat, and I will have won. Okay, the little guy, in order to have a hope, has to have a plan. It's absolutely true of business. If you have a hope of succeeding in business, you have to have a clearly defined plan. Okay? In addition to that, you have to have the will to carry it out. That means you can't give up easily. That means you have to, when you look at the big guy, you have got to decide, do I really want to do this? And if you have the will to say, yeah, I want to do this, I want to accomplish this thing, then you can do it. I think Henry Ford said it best. He said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Okay? It's all up in here where you decide whether or not you're going to succeed. That's how you determine your wage. Okay. Now, we all have giants that we have to conquer in life. And the truth of the matter is, maybe every day there's a giant in your life, whether it's a temptation, whether it's a propensity towards laziness, whether it's a physical obstruction, whatever it is, we all face giants every day. And the way we determine our wage is by determining how we're going to respond to those giants that are in our paths. Okay? I've written this up into a book that I'll be releasing soon, and I sent a chapter of it to Mark Inglis. He's the guy in the picture here. Mark Inglis is the only person to summit Mount Everest as a double amputee. And here's what he said regarding the principles that we just talked about. He said, John Tippetts is right. Hope and will are essential in conquering all of life's mountains. Legs are optional. Now, just imagine climbing Mount Everest, having the guts, the will to say, I'm going to climb Mount Everest. I know I don't have any legs. That's not that big a deal. I can figure out a way around legs. I don't have to have legs to climb Mount Everest. I have to have hope, and I have to have will to climb Mount Everest. Okay. The next principle that you have to succeed in business, or the next way that you determine the wage that you want, is you decide whether or not you're going to work hard. There's an old African proverb that says, every morning on the Serengeti when the sun comes up, a gazelle wakes knowing that it must outrun the fastest lion or be eaten. And every morning on the Serengeti, a lion wakes up knowing that it must outrun the slowest gazelle or starve to death. So regardless of whether you're a lion or a gazelle, when the sun comes up, you'd better hit the ground running. And that's the principle, that's the take-home message here for you in how to set your wage, is when the sun comes up, are you going to hit the ground running? Or are you going to just lay around and see what happens? And just take it easy and come what may. So that's how you set your wage. Now the next principle that you need to consider to succeed in business There we go. I want to tell you a story regarding this next principle. It's prepare for opportunity. I think Abraham Lincoln said it very well when he said, the harder I work, the luckier I get. I want you to understand the importance of preparing for opportunity. And to illustrate that point, I want to tell you a story of a guy I knew when I was a young man. His name is Wes. Now, when he got out of high school, went to Rancho High School in Las Vegas, Nevada, if any of you are familiar with Rancho High School. All right, he went to Rancho. When he got out of high school, he bought a backhoe. It was a pretty sharp young guy. He showed up at work on time. He did his work, did a nice clean job, cleaned up around himself, got his bills together, submitted for payment on time, collected his money, paid his bills on time, all around good, solid businessman with his backhoe. And because of that, people began to trust him. And so they'd call him a little more often than they'd call the next guy because they'd had problems with the next guy. And so after a while, he found that he needed a second backhoe and then another. And it wasn't long until he was doing work for the big companies in town. One of the companies was the gas company. He went to a convention where a new technological breakthrough was introduced, the wheel trencher. And when he saw the wheel trencher digs a much cleaner trench. It's got a flatter bottom. In fact, nowadays, these modern ones, they even they hook them up to satellites and guide them with lasers. And so even if the ground does this a little bit, the wheel trencher will keep the bottom not only flat, but then it'll put it on a 2 or 3 or 4% slope, so that if you're installing a sewer line, your trench is perfect. I mean, a backhoe can't begin to touch the nice clean trench that this wheel trencher will do. Well, when Wes saw that, he said, this is a moneymaker. So the very next day, he went into the gas company and he said, guys, he said, I've been digging trenches for you for a long time. You like my work. I've been raising my fees X% per year because of increases in fuel and labor and equipment costs. He said, I will lock my price in for the next 10 years if you'll sign an exclusive contract to use me as your first contractor, as your prime contractor for excavation. So if you get more work than I can handle, you're welcome to hire anybody you want. But as long as I can handle it, I get to dig your trenches at X number of dollars per lineal foot. What do you say? And they said, great, we're locked in, no more increases in costs. And they signed a long-term contract with him. Now, the thing you need to wrap your mind around is the day they signed that contract, he became a multi-millionaire. It took him a while to collect the millions, but on the day he signed that contract, because he was prepared, he had prepared himself with the fact that the people he was working with liked him and respected him and trusted him, and they agreed to give him a long-term contract. He kept his eyes open and he saw an opportunity for a technological advancement, and he saw how he could apply it in his business. You have technological advancements coming at you faster right now than they have ever come. Just to give you a little inclination of what I'm talking about, when my dad was a young man, he rode a horse to school and attended K through 12 in a 2-room log cabin. Now you have more technological advancements in a week coming at you than he saw in his entire youth. Okay? Keep your eyes open for technological advancements. There's opportunity there, huge opportunity there. Okay? So prepare for the opportunity. If he wasn't prepared the day that opportunity came, it would have passed him by. He had to see it, he had to be prepared for it, and he had to jump all over it. In fact, he had to put it under contract. Now, the next principle that I want to talk to you about is you've got to be persistent. If you're the kind of person who gets knocked down one time and that's it, you've had it, you either need to not be an entrepreneur or you need to change that weakness in your personality. That's a giant you need to overcome. In order to succeed in business, you must be persistent. They say that in the conflict between rock and water, water always wins. Not by strength, but by persistence. Okay, you have to be the water in business. You have to always be there. If you get knocked down, you have to get back up again. When I was a young guy, I boxed a little bit. And getting hit is part of what you do. Any of you that are into extreme sports? Any of you into extreme sports? I raise the hands. You ever fall down? What do you think of falling down? Hurts. And it's half the fun. Not a problem with falling down. What's important is that you stand back up. If you're the kind of guy who can get knocked down 500 times and get back up 501, I can guarantee you, you will succeed. Just by your stay power, just by your persistence, you'll succeed. Because you're going to learn from every mistake you make. Every failure you have will be instructive to you. And if you'll learn from it and stand back up, you will succeed. Disney has filed bankruptcy a number of times. Donald Trump has filed bankruptcy a number of times. Standing up is the important part. Now, real briefly, I want to cover two more principles. The first is you need to learn to trust yourself. It's very important that you learn to trust yourself. The story that I'm going to tell you comes from a book entitled The Richest Man in Babylon. In the book, he tells the story of a man who made a decision that every day on his way to work and on every day on his way home from work, as he crossed the bridge over the river, he would toss a pebble into the water. And he did this for a long time. And one day a friend of his came to his home in the morning, and they got visiting, and on the way to work, they were talking about important things and remembering old times, and he just forgot to toss the stone into the river as he crossed the river. They got down the road about a mile, and he said, I forgot to toss the rock in the river. And his friend says, what are you talking about? And he said, well, I made myself a promise years ago that every time I crossed that bridge, I'd toss a stone in the river. And so I'm going to go back and toss a stone in. And his friend laughed at him. He says, what's the matter with you? You're crazy. And he says, no, I made myself a promise. I'm going to keep it. And his friend was so baffled, he followed him as he walked back to the bridge. He tossed in the pebble, turned around, and walked back to work. No big deal. The friend had said, well, why couldn't you just throw in 2 stones on your way back from work? Why'd you have to go back? He said, because I made myself a promise. Now, there are 3 miracles that happened on that day when he did that. The first one was that the man affirmed to himself that he is a promise keeper. And he can count on himself. If he says, I'm going to do a thing, the thing's as good as done, barring an act of God. Okay? He can trust himself, and he knows that about himself now. The next miracle that happened is the friend sees him as a leader. He sees him through completely different eyes now. He says, man, this is a guy, if I've got a problem, and it's really, really, really important that I get something done, what I've got to do is I've got to convince my buddy here that it needs doing, and if he promises me that he'll do it, it's as good as done. So he's become a leader in his friend's eyes. The third miracle that happens is this friend then goes out and tells everybody in the county, you can't believe what Fred did. This is the kind of guy Fred is. Can you believe that? And pretty soon, every place Fred goes, his reputation precedes him like an invisible force. And everybody knows that Fred is a guy that can be counted on. That's how you set your wages. When you're that guy or when you're that girl, everybody knows is all they've got to do is get you involved, and they're going to have success. And so lenders, entrepreneurs, people that are movers and shakers, they look for you because you're that person. You've made that decision. The last thing I want to cover with you real quickly is get small money discipline. Now, what I'm telling you is it's important to set a savings for yourself, even right now when you're starving to death, going through school and really struggling, and you don't have 2 nickels to rub together. That's a real struggle, but set some amount to put away every month. And when you can discipline yourself in small money and people find out about it, they will then trust you in big money. Okay, so small money discipline becomes very important. You can trust yourself with big money, but not until you've got small money discipline. If money just comes and goes through your fingers, you've got problems. You start a business, you get $1 million loan, and for the first time in your life, you've got big money in your hands. If you haven't developed small money discipline, I can almost guarantee you that the day they hand you that money, you have failed. And they failed too, by the way, because they need to know that you've got small money discipline. Okay, so those are the fundamental principles that I wanted to point out to you that are key to success in any business. I wanted to review with you internet marketing and its role in success today, and its role in business today. And then I wanted to leave you with another poem of mine, one of my favorite poems. And while I give it to you, I'll just put this picture up here. I typed in Google images of Joseph Smith, and it brought this picture up. Have you seen? How many of you have seen this picture before? By a raise of hand. That's Joseph Smith and Brigham Young in a photograph. I've never seen it before. I didn't know it existed. Think about the character of these two men as I recite this poem to you. If you can keep your head, this poem is by Rudyard Kipling. It's entitled If. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you and yet make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give in to hating, yet don't look too good or talk too wise. If you can dream, but not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors both the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your gettings and risk it on a single turn of pitch and toss and lose, and start again at your beginning and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can speak with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill this unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and all things in it. And what is more, you will be a man, my son. As you pursue entrepreneurship, understand it's not just about money. Money is almost a side effect of it. The real pursuit of entrepreneurship is to pursue your independence. It's to pursue your character building. It's to pursue joy and happiness and the success of accomplishment. These are the things that entrepreneurship is about. Money's a side effect. Now, how much time do we have for questions? What time are we supposed to leave here?
You have about 6, 7 minutes.
6 or 7 minutes. We've got some time for questions. Question here in the back.
My question is actually about this photograph, really, because these kind of things interest me. But I was unaware that there were any existing photographs of Joseph Smith. What is, you said this was a photograph. What's the claim to authenticity on it?
I didn't investigate a claim to authenticity. I felt like that was really outside of my talk today. I Googled Joseph Smith images and among others, it brought this up. It's the first time I've looked at it. I did look at it pretty carefully and looked at Joseph's death mask for comparison and was quite surprised at how similar they look. That's the only comment I could make about its authenticity. But have a look at it. Is anybody in the room aware of its authenticity? Okay. Other questions or comments?
I had heard a couple years back that they found, they claimed that there was a daguerreotype found with Joseph Smith in the records of the reorganized church somewhere. But I don't know that the authenticity was ever verified.
They have the death mask, and it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be too tough to authenticate it. So again, I can't really speak to its authentication. It would be a pretty lengthy process, I suppose. Comment right here first.
What is your title of your book, and when will it be coming out?
It will be coming out soon. I haven't titled it. Just has a working title of Business Success. But I'll keep you posted. We'll be around here a while. You'll know when it comes out.
How do you balance having a chiropractic business and this internet? I mean, like, how do you balance both? It seems like you kind of have two different markets. How do you balance that?
I sold the chiropractic business.
Oh, okay.
That's how I balanced it. I love working with patients, love the chiropractic profession and the business. But back in the 70s and 80s, one of my older brothers was a chiropractor, and he was bringing home $200,000, $300,000 a year. When the health maintenance organizations came into the profession and started gutting the profitability of all healthcare professions, chiropractic's been reduced to, I don't know what the average is today. I probably shouldn't even say, but I'd guess in the neighborhood of 60 or 70,000 a year. The important point is there's a ceiling on professional income, and the internet marketing there's not a ceiling on. Other questions? Oh, over here.
Sorry, when did you decide, when did you decide to become an entrepreneur, or that you were one?
You know, the question is, when did I decide to become an entrepreneur, or when did I actually become one? I don't know if I'm one yet. It takes some practice to get to be an entrepreneur. When I decided, you know, my sister and I used to play Monopoly when I was 8 years old and she was 6, and we'd play for days on end. And we loved the game, and the only rule that we changed is we decided that we could, if we could come to a negotiated agreement, we could buy, sell, or trade any property. And so we were doing nothing down real estate deals when Robert Allen was still in diapers. I mowed lawns when I picked cherries when I was 10, mowed lawns when I was 13 or 14. I've just always enjoyed entrepreneurship, just loved it. What really happened was, when I was 10 and a half, my mother came to me and said, "Dad's been hurt. I'm asking all you kids to get a summer job, and I want you to pay for your school clothes. And how do you feel about that?" And it empowered me. I just fell in love with the idea of, you mean I can help out? I can be a man? I can participate in the family needs? I think it's really important that we help our kids find opportunities to serve others. You know, I think it would really be unfortunate if your kids grew up in a world where they never had to feel like a man or a woman. And if you can give them those challenges in life, I think it's really important for them. Okay, one more question.
Has anyone had any success with your online building projects, like getting followers
The question is, has anyone had success with my information that I provide on this success kit? The fact is, I've been helping friends of mine get involved in building construction, going clear back to when I first got home from my mission, for example. I had a friend who was involved in Amway, and he called me up. He was one of my zone leaders, and he called me up and he said, "John, I've got this new business opportunity. I want to come down and tell you about it." He lived in Globe, Arizona. I lived in Las Vegas. He came down to Vegas, he pitched Amway to me, and I said, "Raj, I think I got a better deal for you. Let me show you how to build houses." And he said, I don't have any money. I said, "I got a guy that'll put up the money." "Well, I don't have any plans." I said, "I've already drawn the plans." "Well, I don't know how to find a building lot." "I'll show you how to find a building lot." And he said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." he's okay. Anyway, to make a long story short, Roger's would be a good example. He's a multimillionaire in real estate development. Any other questions? I guess that's it for time. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks, John.
Thank you.